The sky will not fall. Beijing roars back at Trump's tariff storm. WorldView today. April 4th, 2025. The sky will not fall. That was the bold proclamation from Beijing as China faced a new wave of tariff strikes from former U.S. President Donald Trump. In a dramatic editorial published on the front page of the People's Daily, the official mouthpiece of the Chinese Communist Party, China called on its 1.4 billion citizens to transform pain into strength and prove that the country would not only survive this economic assault, but emerge stronger, ready to teach the U.S. a lesson it would not forget. It wasn't just a message of encouragement, it was a battle cry. As Washington unleashed another round of punitive tariffs targeting Chinese goods, Beijing fired back with a sweeping 34% tax on all American imports, turning the trade dispute into a no-holds-barred economic battlefield. From toy factories in Jiangxi to corporate offices in Shanghai, China is throwing everything it has into weathering the storm. But can this call for national unity and endurance truly guide the Asian giant through the tempest? Or is it merely a final dance before the collapse? The editorial, released on April 4th, drew global attention for its defiant tone and clarity. It signaled that China was prepared for any scenario the Trump camp might throw its way. Just days prior, on the previous Friday, Beijing stunned markets by announcing a sweeping 34% tariff on all U.S. goods, a move analysts called aggressive and beyond expectations. This retaliatory strike came in response to Trump's latest tariff package, which escalated an already tense standoff between the world's two largest economies. But instead of bowing, China stood tall. "The sky will not fall," the People's Daily declared. A simple phrase packed with determination, aimed at calming a nervous population while sending a clear message to Washington. China's economy will not collapse. The editorial emphasized that the nation had long prepared for this moment. Since Trump ignited the trade war in 2018, Beijing has steadily reduced its reliance on the U.S. market. In 2018, exports to America accounted for 19.2% of China's total. By 2024, that number had dropped to 14.7%. Not a sign of weakness, but proof of diversification across Asia, Africa, and Europe. But China isn't merely playing defense. The People's Daily warned that America would pay a steep price. From clothing and electronics to essential components and raw materials, many U.S. businesses remain deeply dependent on Chinese supply chains. The 34% tariff strikes back at American agriculture and high-tech goods, soybeans, pork, semiconductors, putting direct pressure on U.S. farmers and industries already reeling from previous trade rounds. Major corporations like Apple and Tesla, heavily reliant on China's manufacturing base, now face rising costs and difficult decisions: raise prices or accept smaller margins. China's stock markets wobbled in reaction. On Monday, the Shanghai Composite plunged 7.3%, one of its worst sessions since the COVID-19 pandemic. But the government-backed Central Huijin Investment Fund quickly stepped in to stabilize markets, and the People's Daily dismissed the sell-off as a natural reaction, not a systemic crisis. "We have experience," the editorial reminded, citing China's 8 years of economic warfare. From stimulus packages to interest rate cuts and expanded trade ties, Beijing believes it now has enough backup plans to weather whatever storm may come. Unlike Trump, who is escalating pressure, China is playing both offense and diplomacy. "We're not closing the door to negotiations, but we won't entertain illusions either," the editorial declared. A clear sign that Beijing will return to the table only on its own terms. Trump, however, remains combative. Speaking aboard Air Force One on April 6th, he said, "I won't agree to a deal unless China closes the hundreds of billions in trade imbalance." He boasted that his tariffs had already forced changes, most notably in China's stance on TikTok, and claimed that even a small tax reduction would bring Beijing to its knees. But China is no longer the weak adversary of 2018. The People's Daily emphasized that China will no longer rely solely on exports to America. The country is betting big on domestic demand, a long-term strategy that's been in the works for years. With a consumer base of 1.4 billion people, the Chinese market is a colossal goldmine in its own right. From issuing consumption vouchers and cutting personal taxes to aiding small businesses, Beijing is ready to stimulate spending. On top of that, it still holds powerful monetary tools, lowering bank reserve ratios, slashing interest rates, issuing special bonds, and increasing fiscal deficits, all aimed at cushioning the blow and bolstering internal growth. China has changed dramatically in the past 8 years. No longer merely an export powerhouse, it's now investing in high-tech, green energy, and self-reliance. Companies like Huawei and BYD have flourished despite U.S. sanctions. In 2024, China even surpassed the U.S. as the world's top car exporter, driven by its EV strategy. China is no longer just surviving, it's adapting and fighting back, said economic strategist Alan Korber from GDC Analytics. After 5 years of internal restructuring, China believes it can outlast any economic confrontation, he noted, adding that Beijing prefers self-reliance over building an anti-U.S. coalition, a subtle yet strategic choice. Still, not everyone shares the People's Daily's optimism. The tariff war has rattled markets and threatens millions of jobs in China. Factories in Jiangxi and Guangdong that once supplied toys and apparel to the U.S. are now seeing order cancellations. Workers are anxious, small businesses are pleading for support, and rising import costs are fueling inflation fears. But Beijing isn't flinching. It believes national unity, from everyday citizens to high-level officials, will be the key to survival. Purposeful unity will lead to victory, the editorial said, calling on the entire nation to rally behind the red flag. Meanwhile, Trump shows no signs of backing down. He continues to treat tariffs as his ultimate weapon, convinced they will bring China to its knees. But he may have underestimated the opponent. China today is seasoned, better equipped, and fiercely determined. The sky will not fall is more than just a phrase. It's a challenge, a message to Trump and the world. This dragon will not kneel, and it will fight to the end to prove it.